Welcome to It's Complicated, a podcast all about navigating post-grad life. I'm your host, Jenna Crenshaw, and today we're talking to two guests about whether or not to pursue a master's degree. My first guest, Allison Hazy, is pursuing a graduate degree in strategic communication. When Allison graduated with her bachelor's, getting a grad degree was a chance she didn't want to miss out on.
As I was beginning to approach my senior year of undergrad, I started to think, what really is next for me. And even in undergrad, I loved my major. I was a integrated comms major in undergrad, and I really enjoyed what I was learning. And I was heavily involved, as you know, with the Public Relations Club. But I still didn't feel like I had a super clear direction on where I wanted to go afterwards or exactly the industry I wanted to end up in. Just the nature of communication is it's such a broad field. And so I really felt like I was still in a place where I had a lot more to learn before, settling into the real adult world. So I started thinking about grad school, and at first was considering schools outside of Liberty. And it's one of those things I just ultimately started to feel like, oh no, I think I really have 2 more years in me. But what it came down to is I got a GSA position with Comms 101. So I'm a Comms 101 GSA. And once I secured that position, it just seemed like a no-brainer to keep going here. I enjoy being a student. I think there's a bit of a security in that at this phase of my life of that's what I know how to do well. And yeah, it is. It's kind of a security blanket a little bit. And it's this nice in between of being a real adult and still being a child. And as I said, I think I'm still very much in a place of learning about the communications industry and, marketing and PR and things like that. I've learned in life, you can't do what you don't know is out there. So I think I just still have so much to learn about what's available in this particular field. So yes, I certainly would have considered grad school. It's not something I would have necessarily wanted to pay out of pocket for, so I'm sure I would have explored other ways to get it, somehow covered by a scholarship or something.
What about getting a grad degree just because you can't figure out your next step? Even if this is the case, Allison would not discourage seniors from considering furthering their education.
It's just, I think it's a solid option if you don't know what to do next. I don't think, I do see that pattern, and I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I get, again, if you're going into thousands and thousands of dollars of debt just to get a master's that you may not use and that actually isn't helping you in any way long term, then I could see that being a problem. But for me, again, with the GSA position, it's covered. One, that position allows me to get so many great job-related skills. That has been such a worthwhile learning experience in and of itself. And then I'm also, my degree program, my master's program is a little bit different than my undergrad program. So I feel like I'm learning truly different and useful practical skills. So yes, I do think part of the reason I went to grad school is I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have a job lined up or anything like that. But again, I'm not going into debt because of it. And I think I'm genuinely learning things that will be useful in my career in the future.
My second guest is Deborah Saucier, a career coach. In this segment of the podcast, Deborah describes who actually needs grad school in their future career.
If we're talking about, say, I'll give you an example for a business student. Say we have an accounting student who would like to become a CPA, and a good portion of accounting people do. You want to get certified, so you have a series of things that you have to be able to accomplish to pass these exams. So they also, most states require 150 different types of accounting hours. Some states might be 120, but are you going to get those courses, all the ones that are required, before you leave your bachelor's? Some students may, some students may not. It depends on how they made that decision and kind of where they are. So for them to go to grad school, to do a master's in accountancy may help them pick up enough of those so they literally can qualify to go on to that career.
Okay.
So for that student, absolutely. We also have other students that may be in different types of careers that are going to require it, or it's going to be a major part of getting a job. And more likely, you're looking at careers that what we would call be regulated, meaning it's the certification, licensure. It's going to be those kinds of fields. Mental health counseling, if you're going to be a full therapist or be able to operate on your own or as a therapist, most of the time you have to have a master's degree. Is a doctorate required? Seldom.
Okay.
Can you do full types of therapy with a bachelor's degree? Seldom. So it really depends on what a person wants to do and when they can decide that. So if they decide they're just going to do the bachelor's, they're good with that. There are some lower level types of jobs that they can do, and a lot of social work they could probably do.
Mm-hmm.
Working in county government agencies are always a lot of options. And then they could choose to go back later once they have a lot of experience, and it could be a great way for it to work for them.
Okay.
But again, that's a regulated field, so they probably would have to, for some types of therapy, they're probably going to have to go forward to grad school. Now, if we're talking about, let's say, a business student who's just done a business degree and it's in marketing, would that student want to seriously look at either an MBA with a marketing content as well, or some other type of high-level degree? Honestly, more often than not, in that case, if a student is thinking that the grad degree will improve their chances or put them higher up in closer to management or bigger responsibilities, a degree by itself is not likely going to do that.
Okay.
In that case, experience is really what's going to give them those opportunities. So whether they go to grad school or not, they should have had some very good internships and experiential types of skills that they've developed for that field. Mm-hmm. And so experience is really going to be able to give them a better picture on what they're able to do. So if they'd had some really great internships, great connections, they've networked well, they've got good opportunities, I'm not so sure grad school immediately would be necessary, mm-hmm. or would in some way limit them if they didn't have it. I still think experience is going to be important. From what I find, the type of experience, how closely related, can they articulate, and did they get an ability to have success in something where it's measured and they can actually talk about what they succeeded in accomplishing? That's more of what it's going to take. So once they're doing marketing and maybe they want to get higher up, they want to get into management, could the competition for that job be more competitive? Yes, it's likely that more people might apply at that time. So they could consider doing one online, return to school full time, and a grad degree could give them another added benefit in going up the ladder at the time, I think, when they would be competing for jobs at that level. But right out of college without and going straight into the grad program, they would probably not necessarily start too far off where they would if they'd had great internships. Any grad degree, just like a bachelor's, is a big investment of time, energy, finances, and it's like anything you do in your life. It should be well thought out and well planned, and there should be some thought through of what happens afterwards and how that benefits you. So I do think some students might feel a little unsure and choose that as far as the next step. Yeah. Most of the time, the students that I speak to aren't always very clear on how the grad degree will or won't work, and some, when they hear that, especially like some typical business degrees in unregulated fields, will say, "Oh, really? That maybe their expectations were, I'm going to get this and I'll get another, and it'll give me an advantage." Yeah. So the best thing to do is to always think about the cost and the time, and then the way in which the cost is managed. So if it's something with loans and you don't have great experience, that grad degree, and if you've taken loans in an undergrad degree, could gain and continually be getting interest all the time. And so and if you're getting out finally and not making a lot of money, it could be something that gets difficult to manage later when you have a bigger debt, and then you're not, by the time you are making more money, you have to pay more back. So you almost you're not netting home what you thought you did the degree for. So
Right.
I think when I speak with students, that part is so essential to understand. And I'll just say, typically just run your numbers, work with someone that knows finance and help to understand what your plan looks like, because it may be a big game changer for you. So sometimes it's just really helping them think through it. So there are many students who will do that and alter their plans. So I think it's really on that level, it's just a lack of understanding and just making sure we talk through it with students as far as grad degrees. I do know that you hear, yes, so many people have bachelor's degrees, so a master's degree can give you some advantage. But it really will depend on the field. So that's just a few examples that, kind of help to understand.
Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of It's Complicated. If you like this podcast, go ahead and hit subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss an episode. See y'all next week.